Loss is always hard, but surviving the holidays after the death of a loved one can be crushing. So today, how to navigate this difficult time.
Barb Bartlein is the People Pro. She's also an author, psychotherapist, and nurse, and joins us today with more on this topic. Great to have you here.
I'm
so glad to see you.
I always think the holidays are tough because every message that you get and every song it's the happiest time of the year.
Yeah, fa la la.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't feel so fa la la.
Well, and that's exactly the problem, Molly. Everything brings up the memories. Everything, the music, the smells, the scents, the sounds, everything brings it up. And what happens? Well, you start remembering all those other Christmases. Christmases with your loved ones, Christmases with families. And for some people, it can be very sad because they've lost someone or the family has changed. It can be a sad time of year.
You've recently lost your mom.
Yes.
And I think, whether you've lost someone recently or it was 10 years ago, that emptiness is never filled. It's always there. So how about when you get to the holidays and you think about traditions, do you try and maintain some of those traditions? What are some of the best ways to cope so that you feel that they're present even when they're not?
Well, I think it's important to remember there's not a set way to do it. And everybody's different. Some people like to cherish each tradition and make sure year after year. Some people like to define what I call a new normal. In other words, the way it was isn't that way anymore. So how do we want to move forward? What traditions do we want to bring forward with us? And maybe there's some you want to leave behind. Maybe you don't want to spend Christmas with Aunt Agnes anymore. You never liked her anyways. So that's a possibility. But maybe there's a few you want to keep.
And don't you think it's good to sometimes communicate with people? I think one of the things about grieving is that it's exhausting. You're tired when you're grieving, especially if the loss is fairly recent. Do you think it's okay to say to somebody that you're spending the holidays with, you know what, I'm just not up to it this year. I don't have the energy. So could we skip the gift giving and maybe go out for a fancy lunch or dinner or, get some kind of experience? Don't you think communication is part of it?
Absolutely. And I think it's telling people, you know what, I want to do some different things this year. I don't want to do what we always did and just notice they're not here. I'd rather define something new for myself and letting people know and letting people know, you know what, I need an hour or two to myself. I just want to listen to music. I want to contemplate. All of the above is fine. I think the thing is, though, to recognize in yourself that that's the way you feel. And not try to be something or act a certain way when you don't feel that way.
How about as a family member to someone who's going through that? Do you let them grieve, or do you say, you know what, no, they need to be there and we need to help them through this time? Because I think there's that fine line of saying you need alone time and you want that moment to yourself and seclusion.
Well, I think you can do a little of both. I think it's nice to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, you want to get together? I have a coupon for a lunch, or, let's go out for mimosas or whatever. If they don't want to go, they'll let you know. So you can reach out, but by the same token, if someone wants to break away and have some moments by themselves, you don't want to be saying, come on, cheer up, everything's fine. No, it's not fine. Things have changed.
Well, and people grieve differently, and I think that's sometimes why grief is hard on couples in a marriage, because some people will grieve this way and somebody else will want to talk about that person and remember them, where somebody else might just be more comfortable not even mentioning the person's name. I also wonder about children, how, especially if they've lost a parent or a grandparent they're very close to, what are some ways that you can help them get through the holidays?
I think those are situations where it's really nice to have a tradition the kids can do. Shall we bake cookies just the way we always did with Grandma? And they might say, yeah, I remember that. And then you can talk about that. Or should we get a special ornament just so we remember Grandpa? And put it on the tree. I've done that. I have some angels on my trees for people that were very special to me.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Having a specific angel, on your tree. That's a neat idea.
Yeah.
What about, when it comes to talking to kids, what if you have a moment where you're just too emotional to do that? Do you allow yourself to cry in front of your children during the holidays?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that gives them permission for their own feelings. And so I think it's nice, though, if you're not completely falling apart all over the place, because kids find that scary.
Yeah.
But crying in front of your children, I think, can be therapeutic because it gives them permission to be real, too.
And don't you find that some people are most comfortable with traditions, then other people just can't handle it and want to do something new, like you mentioned, or make a new kind of tradition?
Yeah, I think it's all over the board. And again, it comes down to the communication and then respecting what the person says. Personally, I like defining kind of a new normal, building in some new things, building some new ideas. You can't live in the past. You can bring part of the past forward with you, but you can't live back there. So what are you going to do different?
And just before we go, for someone who has lost someone or they've got family members who are that way, is there a period of time, that you can expect someone to be grieving, and after that, they need to start reintroducing themselves to activities?
I think when you lose somebody you really, really care about, at minimum it's 6 months to a year that people grieve. That doesn't mean they're not getting re-involved, they are, but to kind of understand that. And there's lots of resources, Tiff. There's support groups around town. The churches have support groups. The hospices have support groups. I went to a support group shortly after my mom passed, and it was very helpful, very encouraging. You're with other people that are grieving. You don't feel like you're the crazy one, and that gives you that feeling of support.
I think so.
That's great.
You've got great information on your website, too. We're going to share that with you now. It's thepeoplepro.com. You can also find out about the many books that Barb has written about marriage and relationships and energy suckers, too, which is your new book. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.